All right, so if we're looking at how the historical causes of diffusion, two of the biggest ones are just relocation and hierarchical diffusion. That is how English is spread. I'll talk through those in a second. But a lot of them are also through colonialism and imperialism. So if you look here at there we go. At this slide, this is a slide at where English is spread through colonialism and imperialism. And if you look here, so take all the countries in green or in beige, because that's the United States or England. Now look at this slide with languages, where English is the official or one of the predominant languages, and you start to see a lot of connections there between them. So let's look at English first and how English came um, it is the world's lingua franca at this point. So English starts Germanic invasions. It's the Jutes, the Angles, and the Saxons are three Germanic tribes that invade. They're kind of from modern day Denmark, Germany, Netherlands area. That they will invade up into England and take over what was previously there. They were basically just it was some other nomadic groups that were there. Then when the Normans come in 1066, that's where you get your French influences of English, and so therefore your Latin influences in there. Then World War II definitely helped spread English, especially to Japan and East Asia, where when after the war, a lot of United States soldiers become stationed in Japan, and the radio, and that's also how baseball spreads there. And now pop culture today and the internet. I mean, it is English is by far the number one language on the internet. Hollywood is basically your biggest movie producer on the world scale. Bollywood does have some competing influence there, but Bollywood is more or less contained to India and the South Asia, I should probably say as a whole. Pop culture is dominated by English speakers. Now, this is also partially due to the fact that the U.S. and the U.K., two places where English has been dominant, have been the predominant economic powers of the world really since the mid 1700s. And this has been the case forever, that the main economic power of the region, now in this case where the world has become globalized, so the world, um, that English has been the dominant language. And what that means is that the lingua franca have gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. And so that means down there, English, Mandarin, Arabic, Spanish, French, Swahili, and Russian, those have become the languages of the world. And if you know two of those, you're probably going to be able to speak to almost anybody in the world in that language. Now, English is by far dominant there because you think about Mandarin, Mandarin is big, but it's only big really in areas associated with China. Spanish would be probably next most important on this list just because it's spread throughout, and it's not that Arabic is right there as well. Um, and why those have come to be is mainly due to, again, colonialism, imperialism. That if you look here in Africa, well, oops, sorry, in Africa, well, what languages are there? Well, how about French in Algeria? How about in the Western Hemisphere, where Spain had colonialized and imperialized essentially these areas? Well, that's where Spanish or Portuguese is. I mean, you're looking at the world. Wait, so when you go to a place that's the most diverse in the world, you're looking at India in terms of languages. India has two official languages, Hindi and English. But then, depending on when you're looking, they have any number of scheduled languages. 22 is the most common number I've seen. I've seen numbers as high as 26. What that means is basically all the states in India have substantial control. The state's power is pretty big in India, and they can pick their own official languages to be the official languages within their state as well. So whether that's down south, you get Tamil or Tuvalu, or Urdu or Punjabi. I mean, you just have, or Bengali over here. I mean, there's so many different powerful languages within India, and those are what's known as the scheduled language. Here's just another look at that. So many languages in India. Now, that's K-pop. That's for the next slide. That's for the next screencast. For this one, the last thing here to look at, another way that these languages have moved over time is what's known as a Creole language. Let's use Haiti here as an example. Haitian Creole is the most famous Creole language that I know of, at least. And what it does is it takes what was the native Haitians, or what would become known as Haitians, English and French, and it throws them all together, and it becomes known as a Creole language. It's unique in its own way. It's the indigenous language and then the colonizing language combined together. You wouldn't understand it unless you have that knowledge, but it does take significant remnants of that. And that's where today's world, a lot of languages are mixtures, but how much of a mixture and at what point is its own language? Well, that gets back to the definition of what is a language, and that being really hard. The last one down there, it's a pidgin language. That's just that'd be like, I don't know Spanish. But he's like saying, take me to the baño. Well, the person would get what I meant if they were in Spanish. They'd say, oh, baño, bathroom. But it's not really formalized at that point, where a Creole language is formalized between them. What should you know from this? You should probably know the history of how English has become the lingua franca of the world, what is a lingua franca, India and its special role there, and how colonialism and imperialism has impacted the spread of languages.